of somebody I know. Disclaimers, now I started telling this on my Instagram. Little backstory. I'm 27 and I have never wanted a relationship before up until now. Now, my mom has had a very good friend for about 20 years. This friend of my mom's has a daughter. I've only ever met this girl maybe twice. Back when I was 12 and 15. She follows me on Instagram, which I do not follow her back. But even though she follows me, I never see her liking my posts, never replies to my stories or ever interacts with me, which is why I don't follow her back. My mom and her mom have always wanted us to become friends, but there's a reason why we haven't become friends. She's always given off a mean girl energy, like that fake friend that's really envious of you. Yeah, so I stayed away from her. Her and I don't have the same circle of friends, but we have a friend in common. Let's call this friend Valerie. Valerie invited me to a party and I showed up. At the party, Valerie was like, "Hey, I want to introduce you to this guy who's had a crush on you for years." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she said that he had met me at a party 5 years before. Apparently he doesn't have social media, so I don't even know what he looks like. So she introduced me to this guy and we hit it off instantly. We had really good fun and he asked me for my number, so I gave it to him. A few weeks later, we go on a couple of dates. He asked me to be his girlfriend, but I say no because I'm not ready for that. Then guess who crawls into my text messages? My mom's friend's daughter. Her message reads, "It's my feelings that you would ever consider dating somebody who I dated. He and I have deep history. How dare you? I'm just gonna have to speak to your mother about this." I sent screenshots over to the boy and he told me that they went out once and that yes, they did hook up that one time. But apparently she's never left him alone. Then this girl gets even crazier. Part 2 is
Am I wrong?
For dating the ex of somebody I know. After she sent me her text message telling me that she was hurt by the fact that I was dating her ex, I asked the guy I'm dating how long they dated for, and he told me that they only went out once. Yep, you got that right. And after that one date, this girl decided that this guy had to be her soulmate and that they needed to get married. Once a week for the past 4 weeks, this girl has been sending me messages asking me to leave him. By the way, it's not like she's contacting him asking him to leave me. She's accusing me of being a homewrecker. They literally went out once and hooked up. Okay, but here's a crazy thing. This girl showed up to my apartment 4 days ago, and I let her in because I was trying to be nice. She came into my apartment and literally started looking through my drawers. She even grabbed my underwear and sniffed them. As she's rummaging through my things, I call her mom and I put her on speaker. That's when her mom starts yelling at her to leave me alone. And the whole thing was pretty funny to me. As she's leaving my apartment, she turns around and tells me that I need to be careful. And the look on her face was scary. The guy and I kept going out. A month later, he asked me to be his girlfriend again and I said yes. And then the girl found out. Once again, she tries to come to my apartment, but this time I don't let her in. She's banging on my door. Mind you, it's 3 a.m. My neighbor calls the cops and so do I. Finally, a police car arrives. That's when this girl tells the cops that I stole a purse from her. A purse that she had seen in my apartment. Tell the cops that I'm not letting them in unless they have a warrant. Then the cop literally pushes the door open and tells me that he needs to come in. Apparently, the cop believes her. He comes into my closet and finds the purse. Start calling my sister who's a lawyer and they finally leave. A few days later, I find out that this girl hired the guy. He wasn't even a cop. So they literally came into my apartment and stole a purse. Now I'm really scared. Is this guy even worth the whole drama? What should I do?
Am I wrong?
For refusing to split rent with my boyfriend. I, 23 female, have been dating my boyfriend Jake, 23 male, since our freshman year of college. In our last year of undergrad, we decided to rent an apartment together. We split everything 50-50, including utilities, groceries, and rent. We continued living together in the same town as our college after graduation, but recently we both got jobs in Chicago and we are currently living downtown. My dad works in real estate and he has multiple investment properties. My dad generously allowed me to live in one of his apartments rent-free, but he said that my boyfriend would have to pay him $400 a month for rent. My dad is very protective, but he has been nothing but kind to my boyfriend. My dad's reasoning for making my boyfriend pay rent is that he wants to be sure that my boyfriend is with me for me and not because he will have a free place to live. Keep in mind, if my dad was renting this apartment out to tenants, he would charge $2,100 a month for rent. Very ritzy building in the middle of downtown Chicago. My boyfriend is mad at me because he asked me for my half of the $400 for rent, and I explained to him that I will not be paying rent. My dad is only charging him. He says that we have been splitting rent for the past 2 years, so why would we stop now? Our rent in our college town was $1,200 a month, so we were both paying $600. Our apartment in Chicago is significantly nicer and he's paying $200 less a month than what he was in college. Is the idea that my dad doesn't charge me for rent but charges my boyfriend so crazy? Should I suck it up and pay half because I can afford it?
Time. Okay, when I was 17, I met this boy named ST. We met at a special kind of school. It was more of like a strict, tough type of school, but not that tough. It prepared you for the military and you had the opportunity to get your GED or finish high school. So then when we first met, I was rude to him because he was talking to this girl in my platoon. And I didn't want anybody to think he was trying to talk to me or that we were having some kind of thing going on. And he was nice about it. So then later on, I found out that him and the girl weren't talking anymore, and every time he saw me, he would always say hey. It didn't matter where we were at, what time it was, he would always say hi to me. Later on, eventually me and him became friends. We would gossip to each other about everybody else, and we would walk with each other whenever we had the chance to. Because we became friends, at some point the people in my platoon accused me of talking to him in a more than friendly way, but that wasn't what was going on at all. Later on, he started calling me best friend, and I liked it. Like, I was fine with that. Fast forward a little while later, when we finished the school we were at, ST ended up going to college, and I ended up moving back to the state that I was from, got a job, and finished getting my high school diploma. Well, even though we went our separate ways, me and ST still FaceTime and texted every day whenever he had the opportunity to. It was nice, and I kind of started to like him, and I noticed he kind of started to like me, but he was far away. We tried to do the long distance thing, but it just wasn't working out. I just couldn't do it, and he wasn't putting in the same effort. So after that, I decided that I was going to try to explore in girls. And I told him, and that's when he decided that he was going to start calling me more. Like, he did everything he could to make me realize that I didn't like girls. Fast forward a while later, and he came to my town. Of course, we were romantically involved, and he was the second person that I've ever been with like that. I was happy, and I really liked him a lot. I think I even loved him. But when he went back to college, he barely spoke to me again. And he would always blame it on being too busy. It was always on and off. One day he would text me, and the other day he just wouldn't. He would even go days without talking to me. So I finally moved on, and I met somebody different, and I really liked him, and he stayed an hour away from me. We would talk on the phone all the time, and we would also go to the same school. And of course, around the time me and this new guy started talking, ST came back from college. I ended up meeting with ST, and we were talking in his car. And he was like, I love you, and I'm sorry I've been so busy. I'm not making the time for you like I should be. I'm sorry for not talking to you and for not being there for me. I'll change. ST was like, I'll change for you, I'll do better. Just leave the guy you're with now and come be with me. I promise I'll do right by you. He was almost begging me to be with him, but I rejected him, and I was like, no, I like the person that I'm with. And while I was with the new guy, I was also romantically involved with ST. Eventually, me and the new guy didn't work out because he wanted his ex back and I wanted ST back. But by the time I had ended that relationship and I was ready for ST, he already had a new person. But eventually, that girl also ended up doing ST wrong. He ended up coming back to my hometown, but this time he was so different. Like, he was so rude to me, and he would treat me any kind of way he wanted. And I allowed it because I loved him. Like, I wanted to be with him. But he didn't want that for me. So I tried to move on, and I moved to different relationships. I tried to push him out of my mind so I could focus on my partner. But I always ended up going back to ST every single time he came back to town. It would be like a one-night thing, and then we would go on with our lives, right? Well, eventually, I ended up getting pregnant with ST's baby. But I just wasn't ready to be a mom yet. Like, I was still young, I was barely on my feet, so I did what was best for me. That day, I needed his support the most. And after my appointment and everything, he kicked me out of his car, and I had to walk home. And while I was walking home, I had to stop by the library because I was still injured, you know? I was hurt, but I got over it, and later I found out that he was upset because I didn't keep it.
I stayed in my house for 2 years straight so I could become lighter. My mom always told me to stay inside the house as much as I could, or I wasn't going to age well. And after being in school for so long, being called skid mark, charcoal, burnt, I started to think she was right. So I begged and pleaded to be homeschooled for 2 years, and I stayed inside of my house every single day. But my social skills were going down the drain, and I didn't even know how to communicate with the outside world anymore. So eventually, she put me back in public school. After going back to public school and hearing the same names 2 years later, I realized that I wasted 2 years of my life staying inside of that house trying to prove something to other people. My skin looked exactly the same. Everyone in school still acted the same. So I was like, Once I realized everyone was going to judge everyone no matter what you looked like, no matter what you liked or who you dated, I started to make new friends based off of our similar interests and not who was lighter. Those people were uplifting, supportive, and kind to me, more than my mother even was. They taught me to love and accept myself. And I realized my mom was just as much of the problem as the kids in school.